NFL quarterback Deshaun Watson suspended for 6 games following dozens of allegations of sexual misconduct. Watson agreed to settle 23 of 24 lawsuits against him, but denies doing anything wrong. The league wanted him suspended for at least the entire season.
I think most people listening to this would say to themselves, that's an under-punishment.
The allegations contained in at least 24 civil lawsuits where he was accused of sexual assault and inappropriate conduct during massage sessions. All but one have been settled out of court. The Houston Texans settled 30 lawsuits regarding claims of his misconduct.
The big winner today is not football. It's certainly not women. It's not Roger Goodell. It is Deshaun Watson and the Cleveland Browns. They win today with this penalty.
Disciplinary officer Sue L. Robinson, a former federal judge, stating Watson used his status as an NFL player as a pretext to engage in a premeditated pattern of predatory behavior toward multiple women.
I find her ruling to be utterly incoherent. The NFL accuses Watson of going into these sessions with a sexual intent, bringing a towel that couldn't cover him, ejaculating on the women. These are details that have been widely reported in the settlements.
The NFL initially asked for an open-ended suspension of at least a year and a fine of at least $5 billion. But Robinson finding Watson's actions did not fall into the category of violent conduct that would support a more severe disciplinary action.
I think the other part of this, once you dug into her decision, Brew, that I think has bothered quite a number of people, was her distinction in calling this, quote, non-violent sexual assault. And I think there are a lot of people and a lot of advocates out there that would say that is an oxymoron.
She found, essentially, the NFL proved its case. That Watson did engage in unwanted touching, that he knew it was unwanted, that the NFL met the burden of a civil suit to prove sexual assault took place. She calls his behavior predatory and even says he can only work with in-house massage therapists from now on. I find this incredibly difficult to square with her ultimate conclusion.
The NFL's arbiter handed down her ruling yesterday. It left many puzzled and frustrated. In her 16-page ruling, the towel habit of Cleveland Browns quarterback Deshaun Watson was mentioned 9 times. This was a pattern for Deshaun Watson. A former masseuse who worked with Watson spoke with SI and detailed how he did not prefer the standard sheet. Thus, she pulled out the biggest towel she had. 45 minutes into the session, Watson intentionally removed the sheet, leaving him completely naked. The massage therapist said in all her years in this industry, she had never seen conduct like this. The therapist would become triggered after reading past accounts from fellow professionals in her field who dealt with the same antics Watson pulled. The towel evidence helped Robinson reach that conclusion and determine he engaged in essay against 4 women whose testimony was emphasized by the NFL in its case against him. This is important because, as we know, Watson was named in lawsuits by 24 women he once hired as masseuses. Some of the women say that he ejaculated on them without their consent. Some of the women say that he touched them with his penis against their will. 2 of the women detail accounts of essay, including forced, and you see what's printed. 2 additional women filed criminal complaints, and a 27th woman sued him but withdrew her lawsuit over privacy concerns. Robinson wrote on the 3rd page of her report, her decision is limited by the record presented to me. ESPN wrote it makes clear the case presented to her was not about 24 different women, but 4. The NFL interviewed 12 of the 24 women who were suing Watson for damages in civil court and relied for its conclusions on the testimony of 4 therapists, as well as interviews of some 37 other third parties. The NFL's investigators do not have subpoena power and thus cannot compel all 24 of the women to talk to them. It's unclear why they used only 4, but that's what they apparently decided was the best way to make their case. After a 3-day hearing in June, Robinson, a retired federal judge, used a 3-part test to determine whether Deshaun Watson committed SA as defined by the NFL? Did he intend to cause contact with his privates? Did he do so for a sexual purpose? And did he know such contact was unwanted by these women? The towel evidence helped show his intent and purpose according to her ruling, which also found that Watson knew such sexualized contact with these women was unwanted by them. Robinson noted Watson's intent in these encounters must be inferred from circumstantial evidence in the absence of an admission. In all, Robinson found Watson guilty of violating the league's personal conduct policy in 3 ways. By engaging in SA, by engaging in conduct that poses a genuine danger to the safety and well-being of another person, and by engaging in conduct that undermines or puts at risk the integrity of the National Football League. Robinson stated in a ruling released on Monday that Watson's pattern of behavior was egregious, but that it was non-violent sexual conduct, in explaining the length of the suspension. Speaking of suspensions, DeAndre Hopkins missed exactly that many games for trace amounts of PEDs discovered in his system. Josh Gordon and Darren Waller missed a whole season each for smoking weed. Tom Brady, rather famously, was suspended 2 fewer games for deflating footballs to make them easier to throw and catch. How can that be? Asked Will Leach. Is the NFL saying that those offenses are less serious than alleged serial sexual harassment? Now, some of the most egregious rulings in the past, let me read them for you. Ben Roethlisberger received 4 games after an appeal. Ray Rice, 2 games. Darius Geis, 6 games. Jameis Winston with the Uber driver, 3 games. Jimmy Smith, 4 games. I know that these systems have changed. It is still far, far from perfect. A 6-game suspension is unfortunately light. However, unfortunately, if you followed the NFL, how it disciplines players, there is one pattern that unfortunately remains intact, no matter how many times they want to alter this, and it is this takeaway. The NFL continues to betray and turn its back on women and their female fans.